Hello everyone, this hour on Verbling, the next in my Great Short Stories series. Today we are going to complete our short story by Graham Greene, The Destructors. It doesn't get more classic than Graham Greene, kids. Can you really live with yourself knowing you did not read a single page of Graham Greene in 2014? Well, if so, I know how you feel, and now is your chance to change that before it's too late. So what we're going to do in today's class is we are going to complete part 4 of the story and a little bit of part 3 that we might have missed. And then we're going to go into a discussion. Before we start reading, we're going to just summarize parts 1 and 2 that we've already read in case you were not part of the class at that time. And that is a little bit about what we're doing. Here's a bit about me. I'm John Eric, your Verbling teacher for this hour. I'm an American teacher from New York, hanging out in Lisbon, Portugal to bring you this class. By the way, here are 3 quick rules to help you participate. Don't forget to turn off, tune in, and open up. That means turn off your microphone when you're not speaking so we can keep the classroom nice and quiet. Tune in to the new words you're learning. Use them as actively as you can so that I can correct you and give you feedback. Finally, open up to your classmates. Relax and have fun. We're all here to learn, and this is a safe and respectful place to practice your English. And there you go. That's a bit about me. So what we're going to do is get started. Let me turn on the screen sharing. Let me see if I can do this quickly for you, and I'll share with you the material. Hold on a second. Let me just adjust my computer so I can share this with you. 1 minute. There we go. All right. And so if you click on that link, then you know you're in the right place. All right. So now we've got some people joining us. Okay. So what I want to do is just start by doing a little review of what we've read before, and then we'll get some people in here and we'll finish up. Okay. Plenty of people signed up, so just waiting for you all to come in the class. I've added some links for you as well. So if you go down here, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I've got a biography and an interview, which you should definitely check out if you haven't. I just added them today, so actually you won't have had a chance to do it. The biography and the interview are both very interesting. By the way, up here, you've got the table of contents, and I put each section of the story into a different link. So all 4 sections are there, and I added discussion questions at the very bottom. So what I'd like to do is a little bit of a review as I'm waiting for people to come into class. Okay, so let's start with a little review. I'll put it back up here so you know where we are. And here's what I wanted to say. Well, The Destructors is about a group of teenage boys who called themselves the Wormsley Common Gang. So they named themselves after the place where they live, Wormsley Common. And this part we've already read in the story. So let me summarize some of the things that have happened. In part 1, we meet them, and we find out that these boys meet every day in a parking lot near a part of town that was bombed during World War II. In part 1, we find out that almost everything in the area is destroyed, although one particular house in the neighborhood stands with almost no damage. I think this is something we might have actually missed when we were reading this, that This one particular house is different than all the others. I remember the description, but I don't think we really talked about it too much. So in part one, we discover that this one particular house owned by this one particular guy named Mr. Thomas is different than all of his neighbors' houses. It's almost untouched. And remember, this takes place during World War II. The house is owned by Mr. Thomas, whom the boys call Old Misery. Let me just mute you for a second, Daniel, because we're getting a lot of noise on your end. Just going to mute you. You can turn your mic on in just a second. Old Misery. And he lives alone. One day, the gang's leader, who was originally another boy, but was taken over, well, it's originally Blackie, suggests that they spend the day basically trying to get on the bus for free. That's like their project as a gang of teenagers. T, whose real name is Trevor, has another idea. So Trevor has been inside of Mr. Thomas's house and suggests that the boys take advantage of the old man's upcoming 2-day absence. And he decides he has a radical plan to demolish the entire house from the inside while the man is away. T, because of his radical suggestion, becomes the gang's new leader. And when the boys meet at the appointed time the next morning, T has already organized his directions for the boys to demolish his house. By the end of the day, the house is in shambles. In other words, it's destroyed. The floors are torn up, the fixtures are smashed, the electrical cords are all cut, the doors have been destroyed, and after everyone but Blackie has left, T shows him something special. Mr. Thomas's savings of 71-pound notes. In other words, he's put money in his mattress. T explains that he and Blackie will burn the notes at a time to celebrate. After they're finished, they go home. The next day, they meet again to complete the destruction. That's kind of where we left off. Let me just ask you. At the very end of that part 3 that we were reading, it's like the next day, and they're going to go back to work. So they take out the staircase, they demolish the layers of the wall, they knock down the floors, and there's like a big flood. Before they're finished, there's an announcement made by one of the boys. So Daniel and Moulin, at the end of part 3, what was the surprise that T and the other boys had waiting for them? Do you remember? What was the announcement?
Yeah, the comeback of Old Misery. The arrival of Old Misery.
Old Misery came back.
Yeah, and they ought to escape before he reached the house. So, let's say rebellion has something like a rebellion has happened in the gang, and T was mocked by a person called I don't know his name. Butter? Can't remember his name.
I don't remember. I don't remember who it was.
I'm trying to
I can't remember. I can't remember who it was. We'll see who it was. But anyway, he's mocked by this boy. And what kind of character is that boy? Remember, T's the leader, so
he's like the coward of the gang.
exactly. He's the coward. So when he mocks T, T is suddenly the group is sort of it's questionable whether he can remain the leader, because maybe everyone will lose their faith in him. Does he remain the leader, or does he lose the leadership? Hello?
Yeah, yeah. He stay. as the leader after Blackie fully support him, and uh, he back him up and tell him that he's willing to watch the back door, I guess,
Yeah,
while the other guys are while T is continuing on demolishing the house, the apartment,
that's it.
the house.
The house, right. That's it. So that's basically where we left off. Thomas is on his way back, and T, it's this moment of crisis, and he could lose the gang, but he doesn't. Blackie backs him up. The old leader backs him up. Well, he's not old. He's young. He's probably 12 years old, but you get the idea. He backs him up. Let's pick it up at the end of part 3, where he's on his way back. He being Thomas. I just marked it, but here. There we go. It's on page 11. Let's pick it up right when they encounter Old Misery coming up the street. All right. We'll take turns reading. I'll do the first paragraph. Maybe I'll do the dialogue because it maybe goes a little smoother. Daniel, why don't you take the first paragraph for us on the bottom of page 11? You see where we are?
If you don't mind, I'll try it after because I'm on my mobile phone because I'm restarting the my PC.
Okay, no problem. All right. So Mulan, why don't you take the first paragraph for us?
Okay, 1 second. Okay. Old Misery came limping off the common. He had mud on his shoes, and he stopped to scrape them on the pavement's edge. He didn't want to soil his house, which stood jagged and dark between the bomb sites, saved sonorally as he believed from the destruction. Even the fanlight had been left unbroken by the bomb's blast. Somewhere somebody whistled. Old Misery looked sharply round. He didn't trust whistles. A child was shouting. It seemed to come from his own garden. Then a boy ran into the road from the car park. "Mr. Thomas," he called. "Mr. Thomas."
I'm
"What
going
is
to
it?"
do this. I'm going to do this little dialogue here just to make it go a little faster. But
Okay.
we've just seen these events from another point of view, right? In the last part we read in the last week, we saw these events from the kid's point of view, and now it's like a movie camera that cuts outside the building, and we're seeing that same scene replayed, but from the point of view of the old man. The whistling is like warning that the man's coming or whatever. All right. So let me just do this dialogue here so we get the kind of the sound of the dialogue from a native speaker, and then we'll turn it back over to you. What is it? I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Thomas. One of us got taken short, and we thought you wouldn't mind, and now he can't get out. What do you mean, boy? He's got stuck in your loo. He'd have no business. Haven't I seen you before? You showed me your house. Ah, so I did. What does that give you the right to? Do hurry, Mr. Thomas. He'll suffocate. He'll suffocate in the bathroom. Nonsense. He can't suffocate. Wait till I put my bag in. I'll carry your bag. Oh, no, you don't. I carry my own bag. This way, Mr. Thomas. I can't get into the garden that way. I've got to go through the house. But you can get in the garden this way, Mr. Thomas. We often do. You often do? He followed the boy with a scandalized fascination. When? What right? This should be over here. Let me move this. Sorry. That should be there. When? What right? Do you see? The wall's low. I'm not going to climb into my own garden. It's absurd. This is how we do it, 1 foot here, 1 foot there, and over. The boy's face peered down, an arm shot out, and Mr. Thomas found his bag and deposited on the other side of the wall. Give me back my bag, Mr. Thomas said. From the loo, a boy yelled and yelled. I'll call the police. Your bag's all right, Mr. Thomas. Look here, 1 foot here, on your right, now just above to your left. Mr. Thomas climbed over his own garden wall. Here's your bag, Mr. Thomas. I'll have the wall built up, Thomas said. I'll not have you boys coming over here, using my loo. He stumbled on the path, but the boy caught his elbow and supported him. Thank you, my boy, he murmured automatically. Somebody shouted again through the dark. I'm coming, Mr. Thomas called. He said to the boy beside him, I'm not unreasonable. Been a boy myself. As long as things are done regular, I don't mind you playing round the place Sunday mornings. I guess he's going to regret that comment. Adi, quick question?
Yes, I just don't know what is scandalized fascination.
Fascination. Well, you know what fascination is, right?
I'm not sure.
Let's
Okay.
see if the group can help. Could anyone give an example of fascination? When might we be fascinated by something?
Something amazes you.
Something amazes you. It's fascinating. Okay, so if you're amazed by something,
What a beautiful girl.
you're amazed by a beautiful girl. Can't stop looking at her. You're fascinated. Everything seems interesting about her. But scandalized. Think about what just happened here, right? He just finds out that these kids are in his property without his permission. He doesn't know
Mhm.
about inside the house. He only knows that they're playing in the backyard and they're in his bathroom. Scandalized. When do we think about a scandal? Like a scandal in the media. What might happen in the media, or what has happened recently in the media? What's a scandal you can think of?
Mhm. The scandal about okay.
iCloud scandal.
Sorry, Mulan, what were you saying?
iCloud scandal. The leaked photos.
Okay, so the celebrity photo scandal that was a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, or a week ago. In other words, all those Jennifer Lawrence types had their phones hacked and their private photos were leaked and put out on the internet. Remember that scandal, Adi? Odie. Remember that scandal?
Yes,
Odie,
I
not
know the
Adi.
scandal.
Odie.
O with O sounds like a yellow goat.
Like yellow goat. Odie. So,
Oh,
what's the scandal here, Odie?
so it's about something that happened between two peoples. It is like a scandal. I know about scandal. I just don't know when the scandalized and fascination put together.
What did the boys do that was a scandal in the mind of the old man?
Okay.
What did they do?
Okay, I'm gonna read it first because I think I missed a lot of things right here.
Okay, but tell me, what do you think they did that was a
Mm,
scandal? Obviously, there's
I
no media involved, there's no newspapers, so
That's right.
what did they do that they shouldn't have done?
They do something bad in the garden. No.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. They entered his property, and he was
Oh.
surprised. And they're using his bathroom without his permission because it's outdoors. So in his mind, this is the biggest scandal in the world, bigger than hacked Jennifer Lawrence photos. This is so he's staring at them, amazed, fascinated, and he's
Hmm?
fascinated by this scandal. He can't believe what he's hearing. In other words, He's almost speechless. He can't believe what he's just discovered. So scandalized fascination is he's staring at them, fascinated, and
Mhm.
obviously, in his mind, this is a scandal, something that should not have happened. What should not have happened? That they broke into his property.
Okay.
Adi, why
Yeah.
is this ironic? This moment in the story, he feels scandalized by the boys in his backyard. Why is that ironic in the story? What does he not know about the boys?
Um, because they they're still young, but they do some bad something bad. I don't know.
That's true. And he's okay with that. He says, okay, I was a kid too. What did they do that
Oh.
he is not aware of yet, Adi? What did they do inside the house?
They do a lot of things um that is um without any permission with the owner of the property.
Yeah, they destroyed the inside of the house. They
Oh.
destroyed it. They destroyed it. They took out the floors. They took out the windows. They broke everything. He doesn't know it yet. So
Mm.
it's ironic because he's like, "Oh, I can't believe you're in my bathroom." He's got no idea what's happening inside the house. When he finds out, he's going to be pretty angry. Remember, their goal was to destroy the house because, as we found out, it's the only house that was not damaged during World War II. It's the only house that's standing and it's different than the other houses. The only one on the block that wasn't knocked down by a bomb or damaged in some way from the debris and the destruction. So the kids decide they're going to make sure that it's just like the other houses, even worse than the other houses. So that's where we are in the story. Now you know scandalized fascination, right?
Yes, it's all clear now. Thank you.
More clear than it even should be. Scandalized fascination is not a real term. It's something that Graham Greene invented when he was writing the story. It's not something that people say. But anyway, we can figure out
Uh,
what it means from the
isn't
context.
isn't scandalized just an adjective for fascination?
Scandalized is an adjective for feeling violated.
No, I mean in this sentence structure, isn't it like an adjective for fascination? I thought that it would mean more like
Like,
fascination that's obvious to the other persons or the other people, the other person.
yeah, but the part that's obvious is that he has been violated in some way. That's the scandal part. So what kind of fascination? This sense of violation, this sense of trespassing. That's the scandal. So yeah, you're right. It's an adjective describing the kind of fascination, the kind of amazement that he has. Yep, that's it. So it's an
Okay.
adjective. Um, let's see. Where did we leave off? I your bag. Here we go. Daniel, I think we left off with you because you're on your mobile phone. So take it from there.
Okay. Sometimes I like company, only it's got to be regular. One of you asks leave and I'll say yes. Sometimes I'll say no, won't feel like it. And you come in at the front door and out at the back. No garden walls. Do get him out, Mr. Thomas. He won't come to any harm in my loo, Mr. Thomas said, stumbling slowly down the garden. Oh, my rheumatics, he said. Always
Romantics. What's that?
rheumatic.
Romantic.
Yeah, it's the bones. It's a pain from the bones, I think.
Yeah. He's an old
In the
guy.
joints.
He's an old guy with rheumatism.
Mm.
So I'll put a little link there to Wikipedia if you want to look up rheumatism. Old, painful joints. Okay, keep going.
Always get getting always getting on bank holiday. I got to go careful. There's loose stones here. Give me your hand. Do you know what my horoscope said yesterday? Abstain from any dealings in first half of week. Danger of serious crash. That might be on this path, Mr. Thomas said. They speak in parable. He paused at the door of the room. What's the matter in there? He called. There was no reply. Perhaps he's fainted, the boy said. Not in my loo. Here, you, come out, Mr. Thomas said, and giving a great jerk at the door, he nearly fell on his back when it swung easily open. A hand first supported him and then pushed him hard. His head hit the opposite wall and he sat heavily down. His back hit his feet. A hand whipped the key out of the lock and the door slammed. "Let me out!" he called, and heard the key turn in the lock. A serious crash, he thought, and felt dizzy and confused and all.
What happened to him? What
Eh,
what did the boys do?
eh, um,
Did they trick him?
he
Was there someone in the loo?
no,
No, there
no,
was
no, no,
nobody in the loo.
no.
So how did they trick him? And why did they trick him? What did they really want?
He pushed the old man in the bathroom and closed the door.
Yeah. They don't want him to see the house, so they locked him in the loo by
Yeah.
saying there was a boy in there.
Like a jail, a prison.
He felt dithery. Let's take a look. Feeling or showing uncomfortable feelings of uncertainty, like anxious. You can actually see anxious as one of the synonyms.
Mhm.
So he felt dithery, confused, and old. And he was confused and old, so it makes sense. But he felt even more old now because he got tricked.
Yeah.
Mr. Odie, take this one.
Okay. A voice spoken to him softly through the star-shaped hole in the door. Don't worry, Mr. Thomas, it said. We won't hurt you, not if you stay quiet. Mr. Thomas put his head between his hands and pondered. He had noticed that there was only one lorry in the car park, and he he felt certain that the driver would not come for it before the morning. Nobody could hear him, for the road in front and the lane at the back was seldom used. Anyone who passed there would be hurrying home and would not pause for what they would certainly take to be
Drunken cries.
drunken cries. And if he did call help, who on a lonely bank holiday would have the courage to investigate? Mr. Thomas sat on the loo and pondered with the wisdom of age.
So, do you feel sorry for Mr. Thomas, Odie?
Yeah, I feel wisdom of
What
yeah.
makes what makes this even more difficult for him? What kind of what day is it? It says here, bank holiday evening. What does that mean?
It's it's in weekend on weekend,
Well, it's a holiday.
Saturday or oh
It's a
holiday.
holiday, so not a weekend, but like a weekend. So
Mm.
what does that say about his chances of getting rescued? If it's a bank holiday,
Mhm.
is anyone going to find him in the loo?
I don't think so because everybody's are uh, in holiday.
Exactly. So he's got nothing to do except sit there and think. um, so it's kind of sad too because the old man is kind of like, like many old people, he's kind of lonely, and he's actually starting to say, "Oh, you kids can play in my backyard if you want. I understand." And right when he starts to say that, they shove him in the bathroom and lock him in there. He's got no idea what they're up to, basically. Um, okay, Milan, why don't you take the last part of part three down here? Let's find out what happens to him in the loo.
After a while, it seemed to him that there were sounds in the silence. They were faint and came from the direction of his house. He stood up and peered through the ventilation hole. Between the cracks in one of the shutters he saw a light. Not the light of a lamp, but the wavering light that a candle might give. Then he thought he heard the sound of hammering and scraping and chipping. He thought of burglars. Perhaps they had employed the boy as a scout. But why should burglars engage in what sounded more and more like a stealthy form of carpentry? Mr. Thomas let out an experimental yell, but nobody answered. The noise could not even have reached his enemies.
So what's he hearing in the loo?
The destruction of his house, I guess.
Yep. So he's trying to
Yeah.
he's trying to work out what's going on. Like he thinks the kids are there because they can't be they can't be smart enough to do this. They must be working for adults, for crooks, right? He's trying to work out what's going on because he feels helpless.
He thought that someone is trying. At first, he was thinking that someone might be trying to burgle his home. But then again, he was thinking to himself, that doesn't sound like a burglary. It sounds more like a carpentry operation.
Exactly. So he can't quite figure out what's going on. Okay, we're reaching the exciting conclusion of the story, and I think it's just a page, so it's really quite short. And then we'll talk about everything. All right? So I think we're back to you. Daniel, for the next part.
Okay. Mike had gone home to bed, but the rest stayed. The question of leadership no longer concerned the gang. With nails, chisels, screwdrivers, anything that was sharp and penetrating, they moved around the inner walls worrying at the mortar between the bricks. They started to hide, and it was
Wait. They started to
hide,
no
hide, hide.
high, right?
They started to hide, and it was Blackie who hit on the damp goods and
Realized.
realized the work could be half if they weakened the joints immediately above. It was a long, tiring, un- unamusing job,
Un
an amusing job,
right.
but at last, it was finished. At least or at last?
At last.
At last. Okay. The good house stood there balanced on a few inches of mortar between the damp cores and the bricks.
Okay, the gutted house. What do you think gutted means. I don't know if it's clear.
Weak.
Not weak.
Empty.
Empty. Okay. Uh, when you gut a fish, what do you do? Because you can see the metaphor here. Have you ever gutted a fish to cook it, Daniel?
You take his
Take its.
he take its the inside of the body. I don't know.
Right. You take its insides out, or you take its guts out.
Cut out.
So to gut a fish is to take out the guts, the
Um,
insides.
okay.
So if you gut the house, what are you
Mhm.
taking out?
The walls, the doors, the
Yep.
floor.
Everything except the outside walls. Everything inside has been taken out. That's it. You got to move your mobile phone away from the. Because I'm hearing.
Yeah. It's far away. No
It
problem.
is.
Yeah.
I don't
At
know how.
least 1 meter.
I don't know what.
1 meter is 1 meter is not too far.
Yeah, you've got to 3 meters. 3 meters.
3 meters. Okay.
It's physics. Don't ask me. It's physics. All right, Mr. Odie, you're up. No. Who's sorry? I need to go in line. So I think was it Daniel Milan Odie? I think who was next? Was it Odie or Milan?
Odie.
Odie, you're next.
Okay. They remain the most dangerous dogs of all. Out in the
Hang on a second.
open.
Hang on.
Okay.
They
Yes.
remain. There remained. There remained.
Okay, the teaser. They remained.
Good.
How about that? Okay. They remain the most dangerous dogs of all. Out in the open at the edge of the bomb site. Summers went to watch the road for passers by. Passers
Passers
by.
Passers-by. Those are people who are walking. So he's
Mm,
looking for passers-by, people walking down the street, in case there are people witnessing passers-by. We can also say
passers by.
pedestrians too. Pedestrians,
Mm.
passers-by.
So pedestrian is for the people or for the trottoir? For
It's
the
for the it's for people. So a
for the
pedestrian is someone who uses their feet, because ped
mm-hmm.
is the root in Latin for feet. So pedestrians are people who are walking. Passers-by
Oh,
is the English word of the Latin pedestrian. So it means
mm,
people walking by, or people who could be walking by. In this case,
okay.
he stays out there watching because they're going to do something big that remains the most dangerous task of all.
Mhm. Okay. And Mr. Thomas, sitting on the loo, heard clearly now the sounds of sawing. It no longer came from his house. That a little reassured him. He felt less concerned. Perhaps the other noises had no significance. Significance.
Significance.
Significance.
There you go.
A voice.
Say that again. Significance.
With eyes wide open. Okay. A voice spoke to him through the hole. Mr. Thomas, let me out. Mr. Thomas said sternly.
Sternly, like as if he's an authority. Sternly. Let me out.
Oh, okay. Let me out, Mr. Thomas said sternly. Here's a blanket, the voice, and a long gray sausage was worked through the hole and filled in the swatches over Mr. Thomas' head. There's nothing personal, the voice said. We want you to be comfortable tonight. Tonight? Mimas repeated incredulously. Couch, the voice said. Penny buns. We've buttered them and sauces roll. We don't want to starve. to starve. Mr.
Starve.
Thomas, Mr. Starve. Okay. Mr. Thomas pleaded desperately. A joke's a joke, boy. Let me out and I won't say a thing. I won't say a thing. I've got rheumatic. I got it comfortable. You wouldn't be comfortable. Not in your house. You wouldn't. Not now.
Why, Audi? Why not now?
Because they doing something. They have they doing they destroyed
Say that
his
again,
house.
but use the key word in the chat window. Because they.
Okay.
Look at the
Let
key
me
word in
see.
the chat window. Because they did what?
Because they did the gun to God.
Not did the
No?
gut. Just get rid of the did. Because they use it as a verb. It's a
Because
main verb.
they have no idea.
Yes, you do. Of course you know. Just get rid of. You don't need to say they did anything. Use the verb to got as the main verb of the sentence.
Oh, oh.
So they blanked
They
the house.
okay. They destroyed the
But
house.
say it with to got. They
They got the house.
in the past or present.
Got it.
Good. There's the answer. This is a
Oh,
good.
it
This is a
seems meaning. Okay.
Yeah, destroyed.
Got
Got it. Yeah. So this is a good example of what I said earlier. In the very beginning of the class, use the vocabulary actively. When you learn it, try to use it in a sentence. So we learned gutted, the gutted house stood there, balanced on a few inches of mortar. So instead of saying destroyed, you could say gutted. It's a good opportunity
okay.
to use the vocabulary. Not you can't do this with everything because not all the vocabulary is everyday language, but this is. And I was putting them in bold, but I'll try to let you know which ones are words you should use and which ones are words you should just recognize. Like literary words you shouldn't use when you're speaking, but you should know what they mean. Anyway, so they want him to be comfortable. He wants to go to his house, but they're saying you're not going to be comfortable in your house. Not now, because they gutted it. And he doesn't know. And he says, "What do you mean, boy?" But the footsteps receded. There was only the silence of the night, no sound of sawing. Mr. Thomas tried one more yell, but he was daunted and rebuked by the silence, like he was blocked by the silence. A long way off an owl hooted and made away again on its muffled flight through the soundless world. What is an owl, everyone? Is an owl a person, place, or thing? Owl? Anyone?
A cat.
Bird? No?
A,
Meow.
a cat?
I don't know.
A
A cat.
bird?
It's a
Meow.
bird. Like Odie said, it's a bird. It's the bird of knowledge, the smart bird. When you graduate from university, there's usually an owl somewhere. It symbolizes knowledge. It's the bird that can turn its head around 360 degrees, you know? They can like look at you, turn around, look at you again. And hooted is the sound of the owl. Hoo hoo, hoo hoo. That's an owl hooting. Got it?
Got it.
Okay.
Yes.
Mulan, take it away.
At 7 next morning, the driver came to fetch his lorry. He climbed into the seat and tried to start the engine. He was vaguely aware of a voice shouting, but it didn't concern him. At last the engine responded and he backed the lorry until it touched the great wooden shore and that supported Mr. Thomas's house. That way he could drive right out and down the street without reversing. The lorry moved forward, was momentarily checked as though something were pulling it from behind, and then went on the sound of a long rumbling crash. The driver was astonished to see bricks bouncing ahead of him, while stones hit the roof of his cab. He put on his brakes. When he climbed out, the whole landscape had suddenly altered. There was no house beside the car park, only a hill of rubble. He went round and examined the back of his car for damage, and found a rope tied there that was still twisted at the other end, a round part of a wooden strut.
So, what did he do accidentally? What happened? What did the driver do without realizing it?
He was driving back and then trying to go forward, to drive forward again when a kid, I guess, uh, uh, it's here, a rope, tied a rope to his car when he was trying to go forward to drive his car forward. When he noticed that it's not going forward, and then he came down of his car. He came out of his car and found a rope tied to his car,
And the rope was tied from his car to what?
to a wooden strut.
Nah. Nah. Try again. Daniel, you try. What was the rope tied to?
I think tied to the outside walls house.
Exactly. And what was the result of trying to drive away? Just like in a movie.
Destroy, total destruction.
The kids, they're geniuses. They're geniuses, right? This truck was parked there overnight, so they tied a rope around the house so that when that driver got up in the morning, got into his truck, and was about to drive off, he accidentally brought down the rest of the house. So it says the landscape suddenly altered. What it means is that 1 minute there was a house, and now suddenly there was no more house. Right?
Very good idea.
Good plan. Not bad. Uh, let's see. Who's next? Is it Odie next? Oh, what happened to Odie? He lost his connection. Uh-oh. We're back to you, Daniel. Odie's gone.
The driver again became aware of somebody shouting. It came from the wooden erection which was the nearest thing to a house in dark desolation of broken brick.
Erection doesn't mean what you think it means.
Ah, no?
Erection means the loo, the bathroom.
Ah,
Because this is 1940s English, so erection here means construction.
okay.
Not what you think, you pervert.
Okay. The driver climbed the smashed wall and unlocked the door. Mr. Thomas came out of the loo. He was wearing a red blanket to which flakes of pastry had adhered. He gave a sobbing cry. "My house!" he said. "Where's my house?" "Search me," the driver said. His eye lit on the remains of a bath and what had once been a dresser, and he began to laugh. There wasn't anything left anywhere. "How dare you laugh?" Mr. Thomas said. "It was my house, my house."
And the driver, just to finish up, the driver says,
"I'm
I'm
sorry."
sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, the driver said, making heroic efforts, but when he remembered the sudden check to his lorry, the crash of bricks falling, he became convulsed again. One moment the house had stood there with such dignity between the bomb sides like a man in a top hat, and then bang, crash, there wasn't anything left. Not anything, he said. I'm sorry. I can't help it, Mr. Thomas. There's nothing personal, but you got to admit it's funny. But you got but you got to admit it's funny. Haha.
Why does the driver, let's start there. Why does the driver think this is funny? Why does the driver think this is not just funny, hilarious? I mean, would you laugh in this situation? I would, but
Maybe if there aren't any person damage, I usually I usually begin to laugh.
I would, but that's because I'm a jerk. So why does the driver feel this is so funny? Think about the time and the place. Uh, what do you think? I have my theory, but what do the two of you think?
Okay. After bombs,
Yeah.
only stand in this house in this area. He get on his lorry
Uh-huh.
and see the house.
Uh-huh.
Turn on his or turn on the engine
Uh-huh.
and start to run, and he heard a big noise. What I think from the mirror.
Are you
I don't know.
describing why he thinks it's funny?
No.
I didn't understand what what you're
No.
saying.
Okay.
Are you just summarizing what happened?
Mhm. The house is, and suddenly the house isn't.
Right. Okay, yeah, so maybe what you mean is everyone's in a bit of shock. So partly it's funny because he's just shocked, right? Like it's there and then it's not. And also, I have a feeling he just I don't know if the driver knows it was little kids who did it, but he just probably is thinking, well, that was a pretty clever way to knock down a house, yeah, because he realizes what the rope was for. So maybe that's part of it as well. I don't know, but I think it's not what you wouldn't expect him to laugh, but he does. Um, let me see if there's anything else I was going to say. Uh, at first, the driver is astonished and confused, but once he realizes what has happened, he responds with a fit of laughter. Even when Mr. Thomas faces him and asks him how he can laugh, the driver is unable to control himself. So that detail must be there for a reason. So think about that. Not just why is it funny, but why is it hilarious? Why can't he control himself? Anyway, there's no right or wrong answer, but think about that as you think about the story. I've got another question for you here, which is, this is a kind of a strange question, but think about this for a minute. If this, I should say this story, if this story were a painting, what kind of painting, what kind of picture would it be? Is it a landscape? Is it a portrait? What do you think? In other words, what do you think in the big picture the author is really trying to do with this story? Mulan, what do you think?
I think it would be better a landscape. It would be better painted as a landscape.
Okay.
Yeah, with
Tell
the
us why.
house. Because the house was destroyed, and the landscape will portray the whole area. It will portray the surrounding environment, the surrounding collapsed buildings, and this exact building, the one that was destroyed by the kids, it will be portrayed as the only in two pictures. The first one will have that building intact, and the other picture will have it destroyed and collapsed into bricks and stones.
But as a metaphor, not literally here, as a metaphor, is this short story, the short story itself, is it a portrait? Is it a landscape? Is it both? Now, not literally here, I mean as a metaphor. Does that make sense? Or is that too confusing? Maybe it's not that clear.
No, it's a bit confusing.
Let me give you an example. In a way, to my mind, this short story is a landscape in the sense that we see the environment through the eyes of the children, and then at the end of the story we see it through the eyes of the old man to some degree. It kind of changes perspective. And the landscape is a landscape where adults are powerless and children are powerful. So I mean it as a metaphor. But you could also say that it's a kind of a portrait. As a metaphor, in what way do you think this story is a portrait? Guys, Daniel and Moulin. So I gave you my idea as a landscape, what it could be like. As a portrait, what do you think it is?
A portrait, it's a picture of a face.
Of course.
Okay.
So in what way, again, this is your opinion, and this is a metaphor. I don't mean it literally. There's no actual portrait here. But as a metaphor, is there a portrait in the story, or is the story a portrait of something or somebody? What do you think, Daniel?
A portrait of somebody.
Is the story a portrait? Don't forget, the word portrait is related to the word to portray. And so, what are we portraying in the story?
Sorry, could you repeat? My computer was frozen.
To portray.
Don't forget a portrait.
Yeah, portrait is related to the word portray. Well, listen, it's better. I have to start the next class. I want you to think about these questions. The other questions are not quite so abstract. Like, do you feel that you knew the characters? Did you feel that you knew the characters by the end? I'm asking you questions about the kind of story it is. Why are characters so important? What about the motivation of the kids? What about the setting of the story? I have a little quote in number 6 from a famous writer, R.H. Miller, who described this story. What makes it a short story? And at number 7, the story is thought to be a parable and an allegory. So what does parable and allegory mean? And in what way is the story a parable and an allegory? Think about those things. We'll talk about them on Thursday, and we'll also begin a new short story. I'd like to get a second short story by Graham Greene for you to compare. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to find one, but I'll look. Okay? But in the meantime, I want you to think about those questions, and we'll talk about them on Thursday, okay, at the beginning of class for the first 10 minutes or so. Then we'll go into a second story, all right? Questions, send me a message to the message system. I'll be back in 30 seconds to start a business class, and we'll be completing our part about the grammar, the how to discuss future plans, okay? So work on those questions, think about them. We'll talk about them on Thursday in the next Great Short Stories. See you soon, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.